Welcome back, viewers. You're watching World DNA. This is the show that gets you ahead of the rest. I'm Shivan Chandra.
And I'm Hem Kaur Saroya, and today on the show we will be focusing on the maritime trade routes that have been targeted amid heightened tensions. Trade routes are being targeted further. Drone from Iran that attacked the Japanese-owned tanker MV Chem Pluto is on its way to Mumbai, where checks and further investigation will be undertaken. Also on the show, as the war rages on, Christmas has been cancelled in Bethlehem, in the West Bank. The Pope, who has repeatedly called for a ceasefire in Gaza, reiterated the urgent need for peace, saying that the birth of Jesus was in stark contrast to the desire for fame, glory and might. All this and more on World DNA. We are going to be exploring this and a lot more in the next 60 minutes. Let's get you started with the headlines. At least 70 people killed in Israeli airstrike on central Gaza refugee camp. Israel says it is checking the reports of the strike, reiterates its commitment to minimizing civilian casualties. Head of Catholic Church, Pope Francis begins Vatican's Christmas celebrations, highlighting the war in Gaza, says the message of Jesus' birth is being rejected by the futile war.
A lui che cancella il peccato facendosene carico.
Massive protests in Serbian capital. Thousands gather in Belgrade demanding an annulment of parliamentary polls held a week ago where President Alexander Vučić retained power. Poll watchers say the elections were unfair.
Results of Chad referendum is out. 86% voters support a new constitution that critics fear can further cement the military ruler's power.
British billionaire Jim Ratcliffe agrees to buy a 25% stake worth about $1.58 billion in Manchester United. As part of the deal, Ratcliffe's Ineos Group will take control of the club's football operations. Our top story on World DNA, the merchant ship MV Chem Pluto, which was attacked by a drone on Saturday, will be arriving in Mumbai today.
Well, the vessel is being escorted by the Indian Coast Guard ship Vikram. The Indian Navy said in a statement that the Navy's explosive ordnance disposal specialists will embark MV Chem Pluto when it reaches the Mumbai harbour to sanitize the vessel and undertake further investigation.
Let's first give you the trajectory of the ship MV Chem Pluto. It started its journey from Jubail port in Saudi Arabia. The destination was the Mangalore port in South Indian state of Karnataka. And here's the exact point of attack. You can see it on your screens right now. The ship was struck by the suspected missile near Gujarat, that is the western coast of India. The ship is now arriving in Mumbai.
The Indian Navy, in its first statement, briefed about the action it took after the attack. Indian Navy's mission deployed platforms respond swiftly to a maritime incident in Arabian Sea. Indian Navy diverted a maritime patrol aircraft operating in the area, undertaking routine surveillance. The Indian Navy also diverted Indian naval ship Mormugao to assess the situation and provide assistance to Chem Pluto. Now, the Naval Maritime Patrol aircraft flew over MV Chem Pluto at 1:15 p.m. on the 23rd of December and established contact with the crew. Navy also communicated details of developing situation to all Indian maritime agencies for rendering necessary assistance here.
INS Mormugao established communication with MV Chem Pluto at 7:30 p.m. on the 23rd of December to ascertain if any assistance was required. ICGS Vikram, also present at the scene, was directed to escort the vessel to Mumbai. Indian Navy continues to monitor the situation very closely with all stakeholders and remains committed to ensuring safety of merchant shipping in the region. This is not the only incident reported in that area. 2 attacks took place on Sunday. First, a Norwegian flag-owned and operated oil tanker reported a near miss of a Houthi drone attack. And second, an Indian flagged Gabon-owned crude oil tanker MV Saibaba was attacked by Houthi militants.
The increasing tensions in the region and heightened risks to shipping lanes have come to the forefront following the October 7th Hamas attack on Israel. The Iran-aligned Houthis from Yemen, who control much of the nation, including the capital of Sana'a, have disrupted world trade for over 4 weeks now. They have attacked ships passing through the Bab al-Mandeb Strait at the southern end of the Red Sea in what they say is a response to Israel's operations in Gaza.
Now for more on the MV Chem Pluto situation, our correspondent Disha Shah joins us live from Mumbai. Disha, thank you so much for joining us. What can you tell us? When is it expected to arrive in Mumbai?
Well, good morning to you and the viewers who are watching us right now at WION. So, as per the official information that we have received from the Indian Coast Guard, the MV Chem Pluto ship is expected to arrive here in Mumbai at about 3 p.m. Approximately, it can even reach earlier, is what we are being told. So, today afternoon at about 3 p.m., the ship will arrive at the Mumbai port, and right after that, the next course of action will be to sanitize the vessel. So the concerned department will go on ground and sanitize the vessel, and then the further investigation will take place to also ascertain the cause of the damage and to what extent the damage has been. It will go to Indira Docks for repairs, because remember, during the drone attack, the functioning of the vessel was impacted in a huge way. So what kind of damage has been caused? So that will be ascertained today. On the other side, what we are being told that the Indian Navy, of course, is monitoring the entire situation. They are also investigating this incident as we speak.
Disha, now I know the ship is yet to arrive. It was initially scheduled to head towards Mangalore, but it is making its way to Mumbai. What kind of investigations are we expecting to see here once it reaches Mumbai?
Well, that's right. Of course, first we know that it is being escorted by the Indian Coast Guard ship Vikram. So that, of course, we will be witnessing. On the other hand, we are looking at, a very tightened security, especially when the ship arrives here at the Mumbai port. The Indian Coast Guard team, the Indian Navy teams, everyone is deployed. There is also, a brief measures of protection and security that we are talking about on ground, which is not much revealed the information, but as we speak, of course, the sanitization of the vessel is something which will take place, and the damage because the entire functioning was affected in a big way, so that will go under repair. So all of this is a further course of action, but the information that we have available right now with us is about the arrival time, which is at about 3 p.m. and then later we will get some updated information about what happens next.
All right, Disha, thank you so much for joining in. And of course, you will be tracking it very closely. We'll get in touch with you again closer to time for further updates.
Moving on now, Gaza health officials report dozens killed in an Israeli strike as the focus on Israel's war against Hamas militants shift to the besieged territories south.
Israel's relentless air and ground offensive has left most of Gaza in ruins and killed over 20,000 people, mostly women and children. Now, the health ministry in Hamas-run Gaza said at least 70 people have been killed in an Israeli airstrike that hit a number of houses in a refugee camp.
The ministry said the strike destroyed houses in the Al-Maghazi camp in the center of Palestinian territory. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said the war was exacting a very heavy price as the toll of soldiers killed in the fighting with Hamas mounted to 154. After the army announced the deaths of 14 soldiers in Gaza since Friday, He said, and I'm quoting here, "Let it be clear, this will be a long war."
Benjamin Netanyahu also dismissed reports that the United States had convinced Israel not to expand its military activity. Earlier, Wall Street Journal stated Netanyahu was persuaded by Biden not to attack Hezbollah out of concerns it would launch an attack similar to the October 7th rampage by Hamas.
I told President Biden yesterday that we will fight until a complete victory, however long it takes. The United States understands that. I've seen false publications claiming that the US prevented and is preventing us from operations in the region. This is not true. Israel is a sovereign state. Our decisions in the war are based on our operational considerations, and I will not elaborate on that. They are not dictated by external pressures.
Netanyahu, justifying his policies in Gaza, said there are countries whose positions we have to take into account. The Israeli Prime Minister added that if we don't do that, eventually there will be a UN decision to impose a blockade on the US. On us. The whole world will be against us.
Now, as per reports, the Israeli Prime Minister rebuked Economy Minister Nir Barkat for complaining that not enough was being done to protect soldiers' lives. The minister said, and I'm quoting here, "Soldiers are being sent to booby-trapped buildings like sitting ducks. The result," he claimed, were tactics that are unnecessarily endangering soldiers.
In a post perceived as a rebuke of Barkat, War Cabinet Minister Benny Gantz praised soldiers and said that they're receiving all the necessary tools. He stated ground forces are getting widespread and accurate aerial cover with unprecedented power. 5 Israeli hostages killed in Hamas captivity were recovered from an underground tunnel network in the northern Gaza Strip as well.
Chief military spokesperson Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari for the Israeli Defense Forces stated postmortems were pending here. Now, the Israeli President Isaac Herzog delivered a nationally televised speech on Sunday, appealing for the country to remain united. Tentative efforts continue on talks for another exchange of hostages for Palestinians held by Israel.
אנחנו במלחמת אין ברירה, מוצדקת, נכונה ומוסרית. צדקת הדרך גוברת על הכל, על הכל. זה רגע מבחן, לא נשברים, לא ממצמצים, מוחים דמעה וממשיכים. יחד.
2 released detainees and a medic said Palestinians apprehended by Israeli forces have been subjected to torture in custody, including beatings and food deprivation. The Israeli army has rejected the claims, saying detainees are treated in accordance with international law.
قعدونا في الشحون وخدونا ما نعرفش عن ندفع على الحدود ندفع سقعة ثلج يكبوا علينا ميه يكبوا علينا ميه يكبوا علينا ميه ساقعة اللي تكوينا كوي بعدين خدونا على السجون وخوض هذا العذاب والضرب ممنوع تحكي اللطمة بتنقامش عن عينه الكلبشات ما نفكوش ممنوع بس فكوا الكلبشات بدل ما هم ورا خلوهم قدام جوع يرموا الخبز ولا يرضوا يطعمونا اياه خلونا نموت من الجوع.
The head of the World Health Organization, Tedros Ghebreyesus, said on Sunday the health system in Gaza was being destroyed. Now, the UN Health Agency has long been sounding the alarm about the state of healthcare, deteriorating state of healthcare in the besieged territory of Gaza, where only 9 out of 36 hospitals now remain, and that also partially function. A spokesperson for the health ministry in Gaza said that healthcare in the territory south was collapsing and northern Gaza has no health services at all.
Pope Francis on Sunday appealed for peace as he kicked off Christmas celebrations with the Mass at St. Peter's Basilica.
Now, as the world rejoices in the Christmas spirit, the city known as the birthplace of Jesus Christ is grim.
Bethlehem has cancelled Christmas amid the war. Bethlehem, the place where Christianity was born. Jesus was born in a stable in the Palestinian city, now part of the West Bank.
The whole world is celebrating Christmas this year, but not Bethlehem, not the birthplace of our Lord Jesus Christ. Bethlehem is celebrating Christmas with sadness and sorrow because of what's happening in Gaza and in all the West Bank, all Palestinian territories.
This year, the city finds itself in sorrow and somber candle-lit hymns. In place of the usual nativity scene, Bethlehem's churches placed the figurines representing the Holy Family amid rubble and barbed wire in solidarity with the people of Gaza. A war that most recently started on the 7th of October has now claimed more than 20,000 lives in Gaza. The head of Catholic Church, Pope Francis, also remarked on the volatility of the war.
Il nostro cuore stasera è a Betlemme, dove ancora il principe della pace viene refutato dalla logica perdente della guerra, con il ruggire delle armi che anche oggi gli impedisce di trovare alloggio nel mondo.
After 2,000 years after the Messiah was born, pilgrims crowd the birthplace. However, the area this year is deserted. Amid the bloodshed spiraling in its neighborhood, the holy city of Bethlehem decided to not have a large Christmas tree that's usually the centerpiece of Bethlehem's Christmas celebrations. The mostly Palestinian population of Bethlehem in the West Bank are mourning the loss of lives in Gaza. Let's shift our focus now. For the first time in over a century, Ukrainians are celebrating Christmas on the 25th of December after the government changed the official date from 7th of January.
On Sunday, hundreds of locals in the city of Lviv were seen joining celebrations and bringing out the dido, which is a traditional Christmas decoration that is made of wheat. Now, this symbolizes sacrifice. Look at this.
І дякуємо нашим Збройним силам України за те, що ми маємо таку можливість. І мені здається, оті зміни, про які ви говорите, вони відбуваються, тому що наші хлопці і дівчата стоять зараз там на передовій і борються за ці зміни, за право святкувати зі всім світом.
In the port city of Odessa, too, preparations and festivities to usher in Christmas are in full swing. Several Ukrainian Orthodox Christians flocked to the Cathedral of a Nativity, lighting candles as part of the Christmas Eve service.
Для нас Різдво – це дуже велике родинне свято, і ми кожного року його святкували 7 числа, але цього року, оскільки перейшли ми в український патріархат, і у нас церква тепер святкує 25-го, чому ми дуже радіємо, тому що для нас ми тримаємо пост, і тому для нас це важливо, що спочатку йде Різдво тепер, а потім вже Новий рік, як і полагається, як і має бути.
In July, Ukraine passed a law officially moving Christmas celebrations to December 25th, as is followed by most Christians around the world. Now, the law was signed by Ukraine's President, Volodymyr Zelensky, in a move which is being considered as a snub to Russia. Because for years, Ukraine followed the customs of the Russian Orthodox Church, which celebrates Christmas as per the Julian calendar, which is on the later in January. Now, the change in date is one of the many moves made by the country in an effort to remove traces of Russian influence and Soviet empires. Now, as Russia gears up for its upcoming 2024 presidential elections, the Russian Communist Party, which is the country's second largest party, has decided to nominate Nikolai Kharitonov to run against President Vladimir Putin.
Now, Kharitonov is no stranger to presidential elections. This is not the first time that the veteran Russian leader is contesting against Putin in race to the Kremlin. He ran against Putin in 2004 and managed to garner only 13.7% of the votes, while Putin recorded a landslide victory with over 71.3% of the votes.
Kharitonov's candidacy has been supported by an overwhelming majority of party members in a secret ballot. However, the ballot only had Kharitonov his name, leaving party members with no other options. The decision was taken hours after Russia's Central Election Commission barred independent candidate Yekaterina Duntsova from contesting the election. Now, according to the commission, there were many violations in the papers she had submitted in support of her bid.
Meanwhile, hundreds of supporters of pro-war Russian nationalist Igor Girkin, who is currently in custody, rallied in Moscow to back his bid to run for president. He was detained in July on an extremism charge following a series of posts critical of Russian President Vladimir Putin. In August, Girkin had announced on social media that he wanted to run for president in March elections. He has repeatedly warned that Russia faces revolution and even civil war unless Putin military start fighting the war in Ukraine more effectively.
Russia has cracked down on nationalist critics who have called for much tougher approach to fighting the war in Ukraine. Putin has held continuous positions as the president or the prime minister since 1999 in Russia, and this makes him the longest serving Russian or Soviet leader since Joseph Stalin. The Kremlin says Putin will win the next election as well. This is because he enjoys genuine support across society, with opinion poll ratings of about 80%.
Now, amid a flurry of corruption scandals gripping China, President Xi Jinping has warned that the CCP members to maintain personal integrity and set rules for relatives to keep them away from corruption at a key party meeting.
Communist Party officials have been instructed to refrain from blindly following foreign examples and reckless action. China has intensified its crackdown against corruption, with President Xi Jinping leading the anti-graft drive. Communist Party's Central Commission for Discipline Inspection earlier said that over 114,000 people were placed under investigation from January to October. Out of these, over 80,000 faced party or administrative disciplinary action.
Through 2023, several Chinese top officials disappeared from public eye with no official reasons being given. Reports say the reasons varied from charges of corruption to infidelity.
Now, Li Shangfu was sacked as the defense minister in October. Let us remind you of that. 2 months after he disappeared from the public life. Reports say he had been placed under investigation on corruption charges related to a procurement of military equipment.
And then in July, Qin Gang was removed as China's foreign minister. Although no reason was given, media reports suggest Qin Yang's extramarital affair during his post as ambassador to the United States could be a reason. Little is known about the whereabouts of the two leaders.
Soon after, in the same month, two leaders of Chinese Army's rocket force were replaced following months-long disappearance. China again did not reveal any reason for replacing leaders of People's Liberation Army, but reports say that anti-corruption probe had been launched against General Gen Li and his Deputy General Liu Guangbin.
Earlier, Liu Xiaomin, Communist Party of China's secretary, was executed in January in 2021 after being convicted of bribery and corruption charges. In order to weed out the decade-long menace of corruption plaguing most organizations, China has been deploying both explicit and implicit measures. And with that, it's time now for a short break.
Don't go anywhere. This is World DNA. We will be back after this short break. When we come back, New Delhi has officially announced that the country's External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar will fly to Russia on a key diplomatic visit that is going to happen today. We'll get you all the details.
Also on the other side, Indians stranded at a French airport near Paris are expected to leave later in the day. More details on the other side. Do stay tuned to World DNA.
Israel woke up to a barrage of thousands of rockets fired from the Gaza Strip.
אזרחי ישראל, אנחנו במלחמה.
Hostilities have broken out between Israel and Palestine, and the tensions that had been gathering steam over the course of the last several weeks and months.
The siren has gone off. I don't know if you can hear in the background what's going on. I'm going into the shelter now. So it's a very, very serious situation here across Israel. It's a state of emergency.
The United States stands with Israel.
Well, we are starting this broadcast with a developing story from West Asia, where Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant says Hamas has launched a war against the state of Israel.
It's easy to tell you a flat story. It's easy to show you what's happening around the world. We do the difficult part.
This weapon has been banned, but the US, Ukraine and Russia do not find the bombs problematic.
We also tell you why what's happening.
New drug is making a difference in the fight against Alzheimer's. This medicine helps slow down a patient's cognitive decline.
We look beyond the text. We give you context.
Is China preparing for a war in the Himalayas? And tonight, we come to you with some proof.
Hypocrisy is stunning.
Do leaders mean what they say? Do they ever say what they mean? To find out how real news affects you, your decisions.
Just when Iran took one step in the right direction, its moral police is planning to drag it further back. And once again, the victim will be women.
Watch Gravitas.
Welcome and thanks for tuning in.
We don't impose our views.
Did India threaten to ban Twitter? Either that or Jack Dorsey is lying to you.
That is Gravitas. We let life breathe through our show. Gravitas, the informed show for an intelligent audience.
Hello, welcome to This World. Vladimir Amelyan joins us from Kiev, and he is currently on the front line fighting Russian troops.
We believe that the world should be ruled by democracies.
I was interviewing you on television a couple of weeks back.
That's right.
And you said, if you really want to understand Jerusalem, why don't you come here and see it?
And you came.
Here I am. Mass shooting after mass shooting after mass shooting. Why this cannot be fixed?
There are 425 million guns in the United States, which is more than the population.
The problem here is Trump has been able to make the argument that this is a political prosecution and that he's being singled out unfairly.
Defend our nation. You are saying we could have a cure for cancer.
We'll have treatments for many cancers in this decade. And they're going to come from India.
Downside is that it could potentially wipe us out. But let's start with the upside first.
The upsides are absolutely enormous. The potential uses of this are almost unlimited.
I only discovered AutoGPTs about a week ago and started writing about them. And after I started writing about them, Jeff Bezos followed me on Twitter, and all kinds of crazy amounts of people have been contacting us.
The show where we get you the week's biggest stories from around this world. What is the India story? It's the story of the world's biggest democracy.
We are developing the road infrastructure. In the end of 24, it will be equivalent to the road infrastructure of USA.
We have now entered the growth phase. And I believe...
Welcome back to World DNA. Thank you so much for staying with us. So far on the show, we have told you about how maritime trade routes are now being targeted, and MV Chem Pluto is on its way to Mumbai. It's expected to dock at the Mumbai port at around 3 p.m. We'll, of course, continue to bring you all the developments on that front.
Also, on the first half hour of World DNA, we gave you an update on what is happening in Gaza. The Israel-Hamas war, it rages on. The health, pretty much the entire health infrastructure in Gaza is now reaching a point of a collapse, and there are major concerns regarding that. We also gave you a glimpse of what is expected in Russia as the presidential polls are expected now in 2024. Nominate, which has been Nikolai Kharitonov, will be running against President Vladimir Putin. We are tracking those elections closely. For now, let's get you started with all else that is happening around the globe. This is World DNA. Let's get you started with the headlines. At least 70 people killed in Israeli airstrikes on central Gaza refugee camp. Israel says it is checking the reports of the strike, reiterates its commitment to minimizing civilian casualties.
Head of Catholic Church Pope Francis begins Vatican's Christmas celebrations, highlighting the war in Gaza. Says the message of Jesus' birth is being rejected by the futile war.
Massive protest in the Serbian capital. Thousands gather in Belgrade demanding an annulment of parliamentary polls held a week ago where President Alexander Vučić retained power. Poll watchers say the elections were unfair.
Chinese state media accused the Philippines of repeatedly infringing on its territory in the South China Sea, claims Manila is spreading false information and colluding with extraterritorial forces to cause trouble.
British billionaire Jim Ratcliffe agrees to buy a 25% stake worth about $1.58 billion in Manchester United. As part of the deal, Ratcliffe's Ineos Group will take control of the club's football operations.
Now, our story comes from India. New Delhi has officially announced that the country's External Affairs Minister, Dr. S. Jaishankar, will fly to Russia on a key diplomatic visit today.
Well, the 5-day visit is part of an ongoing high-level exchange between Russia and India. It will include engagements in Moscow and St. Petersburg. The Indian minister will meet Russia's Deputy Prime Minister along with his counterpart Sergei Lavrov. Additionally, Jaishankar will also meet Russia's Minister of Industry and Trade. Now, discussions will include bilateral, multilateral and international issues. Economic cooperation, people-to-people engagement and cultural ties would also be in focus.
This marks the second time when the annual India-Russia Leaders Summit will not take place. It's the highest institutional dialogue mechanism between the two sides. Over 21 such summits have been held so far between India and Russia.
It was last held in the year 2021, the year both the countries elevated their bilateral cooperation with the beginning of the 2+2 dialogue. Now, the last time Jaishankar visited Russia was in November 2022. Ties between India and Russia have been growing closer and are marked by the spirit of special and privileged strategic partnership.
New Delhi and Moscow are both members of major international groupings, including BRICS, G20, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization as well.
All right, for the latest details and developments on this story, our principal diplomatic correspondent Siddhant Sibal joins us. Now, Siddhant, again, it's India and Russia. The ties have been historic. As far as this visit is concerned, what do we expect from it? There are talks on a varied number of issues as far as trade is concerned, communications, strategic issues as well. So talk to us about what to expect.
Well, the EM will be in Moscow and St. Petersburg, and 26th, that is Tuesday, will be the main day of engagement. As you pointed out, he will be holding talks with the trade and the foreign minister. And the last time the Indian External Affairs Minister was in Russia was in November of 2022. During this visit, of course, both sides will be reaffirming relationship, and this is part of the high-level engagement between the two sides. Remember, earlier this year, we saw the Russian foreign minister, the defense minister, and also the NSA's counterpart visiting India because India was the chair of the SCO and the G20 conference, and that shows the increased engagement between the two countries. There are several pillars to the relationship. People to people is one. Many Indians go to Russia for medical education. Defense is another. And energy has been increasingly another, where we have seen India increasingly importing Russian energy. But there are certain concerns, that is in terms of trade deficit, given that India has been increasing its energy import, and that is something that is expected to be raised by the Indian side.
Right. Now, Siddhant, of course, this visit comes in the backdrop of the Russia-Ukraine war that is continuing as well. You mentioned emphasis will be on trade, energy, defense and connectivity. So I just want to understand, what are some of the key areas of discussions that we can expect, as well as what sort of discussions can we expect on this ongoing war?
Well, when it comes to India's stance on the ongoing conflict, India has emphasized on dialogue and diplomacy, and we know the Prime Minister, the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, said this to the Russian President during the sidelines meeting in Samarkand, that this is not an era of war. So that is something that India has a clear policy. So when it comes to its issues that will be discussed, there will be, of course, multilateral issues. India and Russia are members of the BRICS grouping, and Russia will be the chair of the BRICS next year. So this is something that is expected to come. But trade, energy, other things are naturally something that is part of ongoing conversation.
All right, Siddhant, thank you so much for joining in, and we will be in touch for further updates on this.
Now, officials say that the Indians stranded at a French airport near Paris are expected to leave today.
Now, they've been given no insight into their destination. So they are leaving, but where are they heading towards? No, there is no insight on that. Last week, there were reports of a plane carrying 303 Indian passengers being detained in France due to suspicions of human trafficking.
Now, after interrogating the passengers for 2 days, French prosecutors on Sunday gave the go-ahead to the plane, but full approval for its departure is expected to come today. The airport functioned as a makeshift courtroom for these interrogations.
Now, this unfolding situation centers around a flight that departed from Dubai and was destined for Nicaragua. Now, the plane was detained at Chalon-sur-Loire Airport in Marne on Thursday. According to French media reports, hearings before a judge of freedoms and detention are set to commence, and this is to decide whether or not to keep the passengers in the waiting area of the airport.
According to the local authorities, beds, toilets and showers had been installed. This while police prevented press and outsiders from entering the airport. According to Paris prosecutors, the passengers include 11 unaccompanied minors as well. Some of the lawyers also complained about the conditions these passengers were kept in at the airport.
Alors, ils ont des lits, on les a vus. Les douches sont à l'extérieur, mais c'est ce qu'on a rappelé tout à l'heure. Au regard des conditions météorologiques, vous imaginez, vous, sortir entre effectivement la salle dans laquelle vous êtes parqué aux douches qui sont à l'extérieur avec le vent qu'on a, ça reste quand même des conditions plus que limitées. Il y en a très peu des douches, donc en fait, ils font des tours de rôle, à chaque fois accompagnés, donc c'est vrai que c'est très compliqué. Il faut toujours qu'il y ait des agents de sécurité pour aller fumer, pour effectivement se rendre au sanitaire. Enfin, moi, je trouve que... Non, enfin, en termes de droit, je pense que humain, c'est très compliqué.
This intervention by French authorities comes after an anonymous tip-off. The informer indicated that the passengers were likely to be victims of human trafficking involving an organized gang. Other reports suggest that the detained passengers, primarily Indian nationals working in the UAE, may have intended to travel to Central America with suspicions of attempting illegal entry into the United States or Canada.
India is all set to make use of artificial intelligence in a bid to make better weather forecasts.
Now, the country has been facing climate challenges resulting in a surge of severe weather conditions like heavy rain and floods. As per the Centre for Science and Environment, almost 3,000 people died in such events this year in India. To resolve the issue, the country is now turning to AI.
Now, using artificial intelligence to build its climate models will not only bring down the costs and speed of weather improve the speed of weather forecasts, but will also help India expand its observation network. Now, the Indian Meteorological Department usually relies on supercomputers for predictions, which is not very cost effective. To make use of the new system, the government of India has set up a center to test AI in traditional weather models through workshops and conferences.
While AI shows promise, experts say having high-resolution data tailored to specific locations is crucial for its success. And China is all set to launch a major crackdown on its video games industry, which is also the world's largest.
In a significant move, Chinese regulators have introduced new rules to control spending and in-game purchases within its video game industry. Now, the restrictions are aimed at limiting and preventing obsessive gaming behavior. The rules set spending limits for online games and remove incentives like rewards for daily logins and initial spending. To put it simply, games in China are now prohibited from offering rewards, and new spending limits have been established here as well.
Beijing's strict approach to video games not new. Last year, China introduced playtime limits for all aged under 18. That's not all. The country has also halted new game approvals due to gaming addiction concerns. However, according to the new rules, regulators are required to process game approvals within 60 days. Despite the new spending rules, Chinese regulators have granted licenses for 40 new imported games, signaling openness to more games. Be that as it may, gaming publishers need to house their servers, processing and storing user data within China.
All right, continuing with our business updates. Is the US dollar losing its dominance as a global currency reserve? Take a look at this next report to see the transition of global central banks over the past year.
As we head into 2024, the dynamics of geopolitics is at the core of global markets. So far, America has imposed sanctions against countries to cut them off from the global payment systems and dollars. This has many countries looking at alternatives to the dollar. The latest International Monetary Fund's data shows a decline in the dollar's share in global central banks' foreign currency reserves. The data shows the dollar's shape is down to the lowest in the September quarter since the final 3 months of last year. The extensive use of dollars in international commerce, particularly for commodities and energy, has helped the greenback over the years. The dollar has been the preferred reserve currency for the majority of the world's central banks. However, the dollar has been progressively losing its dominance since 2000, when its share was above 70%. The US currency's share is down to 59.2% in the September quarter, the lowest since it fell below 60% last year. The euro's share in the reserves also fell slightly, while the Japanese yen rose. The shares of the Chinese yuan, the British pound, the Australian and Canadian dollars, and the Swiss franc were little changed. A group of other currencies, including the rupee, rose in the previous quarter. What does it mean to global trade and currencies? This reflects the global mood towards the dollar and the US. Most countries are slowly but surely moving away from dollar-dominated trade. Instead, they seek to settle their trade in their own currencies. India, for example, has set up a rupee trade mechanism for trade settlements. The mechanism is slowly gaining traction. But the dollar's share is still over 50%. So, it will take a long time for other currencies to be able to overshadow the greenback. Still, the shift away is clear and noticeable. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
Now, the repercussions of the ongoing Gaza conflict extend beyond the besieged enclave, stretching into the heart of the West Bank's economy now.
One such casualty is a century-old traditional soap factory in Nablus. Its factory supervisor and manager highlight the repercussions the war has had on the economics of its adjoining areas.
بعد الحرب صار ركود اقتصادي كثير، بطلت الناس يعني تتبع وتشتري على شغلات الاساسيه الاساسيه للبيت، فيش شغل بعدين، يعني الناس الموظفين اللي كانوا يجوا من برا على نابلس ما بيقدروا يجوا هلا بالحوالي.
Our sales يعني decreased 17%. We are doing our best to keep يعني on work and keep these people working instead of staying at home, you know, because they have families, you know, and they want to run their own life, you know.
Echoing through key sectors of the West Bank economy. A furniture business owner shares the grim reality, revealing that the majority of buyers located in Israel are inaccessible due to the current situation. This predicament pushes his company to the brink of collapse. The industrial sector, a vital component of the West Bank's economic engine, has witnessed a decline of 50 to 60% over the past 2 months. Even more alarming is the projection that certain sectors such as hotel services and restaurants could see an 80% downturn. As economic woes compound, the World Bank adjusts its outlook for the Palestinian economy, now anticipating a contraction of 3.7% this year instead of the previously forecasted growth of 3.2%.
Bashar Saifi, Director General, Ministry of National Economy, Nablus Governorate, highlights the plausible reasons as well.
أكثر من 3 شهور هناك مصادرة للأموال الفلسطينية واللي كانت بتشكل بما نسبته 30% من الحركة السوقية وضخ الأموال في الأسواق، وبالتالي 3 شهور لم تحصل السلطة الفلسطينية على هذه الأموال الفلسطينية التي صادرتها إسرائيل بحجج واهية. وأيضا كان لدينا مصدر آخر لدوران العجلة الاقتصادية وهو العمال.
Now, the shadow of instability looms large as concerns mount over the potential collapse of security and public services.
Now, this if the situation escalates further. Now, moving on from that, Australian cricketer Usman Khawaja has been denied permission to place a peace symbol on his bat and shoes for the Boxing Day test against Pakistan.
Well, the ICC has rejected Khawaja's latest attempt to raise awareness of the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. Khawaja wanted to display the image of a dove and an olive branch on his bat and shoes. He did so during Australia's main training session on Sunday at the MCG ahead of the Boxing Day test.
The logo is a reference to Article 1 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Upon receiving Khawaja's application, the ICC denied his request, stating, and I'm quoting, "Personal messages of this nature are not allowed as per Clause F of the Clothing and Equipment Regulations, which can be found on the ICC Playing Conditions page." Khawaja has already been charged by the ICC for breaching the same clause. The 36-year-old wore a black armband during Australia's victory over Pakistan in the first test. He has announced that he will contest those charges, saying it was a reference to a personal bereavement, but does not plan to wear the armband for the rest of the series.
Christmas is incomplete without Santa Claus. Of course, that goes without saying. In the past, many actors have played Father Christmas on screen. And time now to take a look at some of those real Santas. Take a look.
Santa Claus, Saint Nicholas, or Father Christmas. People all over the world may be divided on what to call the jolly old bearded man, but they do agree on one thing: Christmas is incomplete without him. And so is any movie based on the festive holiday. Over the years, many actors have taken up the role of Santa, and now we look at some of the most memorable portrayals of Father Christmas. Star David Harbour's role as Santa in Violent Night is as unconventional as it gets. Take on a group of mercenaries as they break into a mansion.
Well, you coming?
Where?
Why, to the North Pole, of course. This is the Polar Express!
Although the animation of the 2004 film The Polar Express may seem outdated to viewers, actor Tom Hanks' portrayal of Santa in the movie remains evergreen. Actor Ed Asner has donned the Santa Claus costume quite a few times. He put on the red suit for the first time in 1986 for the Christmas Star, but his most memorable performance has been in the 2003 holiday classic, Elf.
I hear you're going on a journey to the big city.
Who can forget Tim Allen's Santa in the 1994 film comedy The Santa Claus?
This is our perpetrator. This one's not going to be easy to find.
Won't the bright red suit and beard give him away?
Allen plays a divorcee who accidentally kills a Santa impersonator and gets punished for it. Wondering how? Well, he gets transported to the North Pole to take on Santa's duties. Actor Paul Giamatti's Santa in Fred Claus is one of the most fun portrayals of Santa Claus.
Mr. Claus, welcome to the North Pole.
Allergies.
Gun! Ow! Ow! Secret Service, stand down. Ow! Ow! Oh, guys.
What's that? Ow! That was nuts! You don't have ninjas jump me. They gotta make sure nothing happens to me. Something happened to them, maybe I give them something. No.
This fantasy comedy explores Santa's relationship with his grumpy older brother, Fred Claus.
Holy cow.
Hollywood has a Santa to suit whatever holiday mood you're in. 2003 comedy Bad Santa is a perfect fit for those who aren't in a cheery Christmas spirit.
What do you want? Well, what do you want? What are you doing? When it came to holiday spirit,
Look who's here. It's Santa.
I'm on my lunch break, okay?
Actor Billy Bob Thornton plays a con man in the film. He dresses up as Santa Claus to rob a mall on Christmas Eve along with his sidekick, who, not surprisingly, dresses up as an elf. This movie is made for those who need a little push to believe in the magic of Christmas. Actor Richard Attenborough plays Santa in the 1994 movie Miracle on 34th Street.
You are a very beautiful young lady. I could make
Attenborough's Santa tries to convince a 6-year-old that he is the real Santa, and in turn helps her believe in the spirit of Christmas. Ben Affleck's role in Reindeer Games proves that not all Santas are necessarily nice. Some may end up on the naughty list as well. While Affleck does not play Santa Claus himself, his character, an ex-convict, does support a Santa suit in the movie. John Goodman's character in The Year Without a Santa Claus shows that even Santas need a little guidance and motivation sometimes.
It was a year without a Santa Claus.
A live-action remake of 1974's stop-motion special, the movie tells the story of a discouraged Santa who ends up skipping toy deliveries until a child helps him rediscover the Christmas spirit. Whether animated or real, goofy or grumpy, there's no denying that all the Santas who have ever taken up the big screen role have lifted our spirits, one way or the other.
And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of World DNA. We wish you all a very Merry Christmas.
Yeah, it's a good time to be someone else's Santa. Use this time to be of help whoever comes to you. And thank you so much for tuning in. Come right back. This is WION World is One. News and updates continue on the other side of this break.
India's global voice.